This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today.
For the first time in my lifetime, we actually have an attorney general with some cojones, and her name is Pam Bondi. Attorney General Pam Bondi had a press conference yesterday afternoon, and she made a stunning announcement with regard to brand new actions against the state of New York over their unwillingness to enforce federal immigration law. And for those of us who have been watching this whole sanctuary law thing play out over the, decades really, this was music to our ears, because finally somebody's at the Department of Justice trying to enforce laws on our behalf. Watch Pam Bondi make the announcement.
We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today.
Yeah, that's strong stuff. I love this. This is a new DOJ. And the state of New York has prioritized illegal immigrants, criminals, over American citizens, and it stops today. Now, what's at play here is a thing called, or a couple of different laws that she's going after. One in particular, because the head of the Department of Motor Vehicles, Mark Schroeder, was also named, you just heard, over a green light law. It allows undocumented immigrants, as they call them, to obtain driver's license, but goes beyond that. If they get pulled over by a cop and they have one of these driver's licenses, the cop is not allowed to look into their background. They're not allowed to ask where they're from. They're not allowed to pull a criminal record on those people. There's a reason why an angel mom is standing next to her. You know what an angel mom is, right? A mom who lost a child at the hands of an illegal immigrant, a murderer who should have never been in this country in the first place. You know, like Laken Riley's murderer. Well, it should be noted that Laken Riley's murderer, Jose Ibarra, was in fact in custody at one time in the state of New York. He was arrested on charges for endangering a child, and he was also in danger of a motor vehicle license violation. He was then released because of the laws in the state of New York. He then left New York, went to Georgia, and he murdered Laken Riley. That's why Pam Bondi is doing what she's doing, and she's going right after the governor, right after Letitia James, the attorney general. And understand something, when she said, I filed charges, these are civil charges, not criminal charges. Not yet. Also, Attorney General Bondi specifically talked about other efforts to try to get in the way of and thwart ICE's actions in trying to go after these criminals.
And that's why President Trump has directed this to stop. And if you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable. We did it to Illinois. Strike one. Strike two is New York. And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready. And the great men and women of law enforcement are standing behind me today. We have FBI, DEA, ATF agents. They put their lives on the line every single day to protect us. And what New York has, they have green light laws, meaning they're giving a green light to any illegal alien in New York, where law enforcement officers cannot check their identity if they pull them over. Law enforcement officers do not have access to their background. And if these great men and women pull over someone and don't have access to their background, they have no idea who they're dealing with. And it puts their lives on the line every single day. Violent criminals, gang members, drug traffickers, human smugglers will no longer terrorize the American people. And that is why we are here today. You will be held accountable if you do not follow federal law. It's over, it ends, and we're coming after you.
I love that. I love it so much for many, many reasons. Most fundamentally, this is just logical law enforcement, right? And of course, these politicians, for the sake of their radical views on immigration or open borders, they want law enforcement officers to completely ignore the basic fundamental procedures that a cop would normally go through if they pull somebody over. That's number one. Number two, it's the fairness question. Imagine you get pulled over. Guess what they do? They ask for your driver's license and they go and they run a check on you, right? It happens every time. But if you're an illegal immigrant, they won't do it. Now think about that for a minute. For all this cop knows, when they pull you over, you are a completely perfect, innocent, law-abiding citizen who maybe rolled through a stop sign or maybe, got a heavy right foot and went maybe 5-6 miles over the speed limit. He's going to pull you over. He may even just give you a warning, but before he does, just in case, he's going to run a check on you. But if you're in the country illegally and you get one of these driver's licenses that says, oh yeah, this person is an illegal immigrant, on the driver's license, you don't get a check run on you. You don't get looked into. Your background isn't asked. They're not allowed to ask you any questions. Even though, by definition, you have already broken laws in this country by being here illegally in the first place. So why do they get different rules than you do if you get pulled over by the police? What the hell is that all about? Number three, the reason why I love this is this. Let me tell you a quick little story about my history with regard to these laws. Not as an illegal immigrant or even somebody who's been a victim of illegal immigrant crime. No, just as an American citizen who likes law and order. I used to live in California in the 90s. We had a Republican governor. His name was Pete Wilson. Good man. And he put together a statewide initiative. They have ballot initiatives, statewide ballot initiatives in California. And it had to do with protecting the border. It had to do with California tax dollars not going to pay for illegal immigrants' welfare benefits and education. That was the statewide proposal. I think it was Proposition 187. You can check me on that, but I think that's what it was called. It won. The voters in the state of California said, and this was in the 90s, not a long time ago, with, did you hear me right, a Republican governor. And we said, no, our state tax dollars should not have to be dedicated to illegal immigrants. The U.S. government under Bill Clinton refuses to enforce the border, but that doesn't mean that we should have to pay for people who get into this country illegally. And then that was fought by the Clinton administration. It was fought all the way up to the Supreme Court, I think. And the federal judges all said, hey, California, that's sweet that you have that opinion, but immigration law and border laws are all the purview of the federal government. We don't care what you think as a state. You have no say. This is a federal issue. Oh, okay, fine. Lesson learned. Then fast forward to the Obama administration. The state of Arizona votes in some very, very specific, hardcore, anti-illegal immigration laws. And what happens? Exact same thing, my friends. That's challenged in the courts. And once again, the state of Arizona is told, you guys may have strong feelings about this, but this is the purview of the federal government. This is the president of the United States gets to set these policies along with Congress. Doesn't matter what the state of Arizona says. So all those laws are struck down. Then Donald Trump becomes president. He starts to build a wall. He starts to deny benefits to illegal immigrants. He starts to try to deport them as the law states. And state after state after state start coming up with these sanctuary laws where they refuse to cooperate with federal agents. They refuse to follow federal immigration laws. They refuse to hand over criminal illegal immigrants to ICE agents because they want to create sanctuary laws, just like this law that Pam Bondi is talking about. And what happens? The courts say, oh yeah, they can do that. They don't have to comply with federal law. So what the hell is going on here? When a state says that they're going to get tougher on illegal immigrants than the federal government, they're smacked down by the courts and they're told, no, that's the purview of the federal government. Then when the federal government comes in and they start to crack down on illegal immigration and states say, screw you, we're going to protect them, the courts come in and say, oh, smack them down and say the federal government isn't allowed to enforce. So let me just get this straight. Immigration laws are only federal purview if a Democrat is in the White House versus a Republican. Now, I'm sure it's more legally nuanced than that. But for the first time in my lifetime, we actually have an attorney general with some cojones And her name is Pam Bondi. And she's saying, no, no, no. Every single state that is harboring and protecting illegal immigrants, we're coming after you. It stops. It stops now. And I want this to go all the way to the Supreme Court. I'm begging for this to go all the way to the Supreme Court. She said one other thing, too, about people who are trying to stand in the way of ICE agents from doing their job.
Men and women in law enforcement standing behind me today, they must be protected. If anytime anyone leaks or tips off anything regarding a pending investigation, that jeopardizes lives. You're telling a bad guy what's about to happen. It could jeopardize the lives of all the men and women in law enforcement. We will not stand for it. We will find you. We're going to investigate it, no matter what agency it came from. We don't know for certain. We have an open investigation, so I can't talk about it in detail, but we will do everything in our power to hold you accountable, and it is a crime. And you will be prosecuted when we find you.
Okay, so Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, she works in the Office of the Department of Justice. It's about, I want to say, 3/4 of a mile from Capitol Hill, where the Capitol is on in Washington, D.C. This should be really easy for her. She could walk there if she needs to, because some people violating those laws that you just articulated, they work in that big white dome just down the street from you. Take a look.
Is on the same page with those who want to crack down, like Tom Homan, and one of which is, not a surprise, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yesterday, she was offering to, in a Zoom call, she was offering to intervene for illegal immigrants and give them advice on how to avoid ICE. The only issue is it was her office doing it. She didn't show up for the briefing.
A webinar.
Do you believe this?
She could have done it from her car.
She could have. Here's the thing, though. What she's saying is if migrants are worried they're going to be deported or they've got an order, they need to sign a privacy.
Yeah, the Ocasio-Cortez's office, a sitting congresswoman in New York, is actually going out of the way and doing training seminars and webinars for people to avoid arrest and circumvent the law and basically become a legal fugitive. So maybe she should be in the sights of the Attorney General. One other thing, I don't know if you heard it, when Pam Bondi was laying out the names that she was bringing charges against, one of those names was Letitia James.
Changes now.
Letitia James is the Attorney General of the state of New York. You'll remember her. That's her sitting right there in the front row of a New York City trial. You see that look on her face? You see that smug, self-satisfied, happy look? She's about to begin the trial against Donald Trump. This is a civil trial against Donald Trump for alleged bank law violations. The sentence, of course, is still up in the air. The prosecution is still up in the air because it was delivered by one Trump-hating judge. You remember this day, right? There she is. I want you to remember that face. I want you to remember that smug smirk that she has on her face, because now she has had her own civil charges filed against her for circumventing immigration law. See, back in this day, back when they were trying to put Donald Trump behind bars or trying to ruin his business and trying to bully and intimidate him from running for office, they thought they were winning. They thought that they had ended Donald Trump's career. They had forgotten about you. They had forgotten about the voters. And now, well, there's a new president. Same as the old one. His name is Donald Trump. We have a very new Attorney General. Her name is Pam Bondi. And, well, she's coming after that smug woman and a whole lot of other people who continue to violate our laws.